Welcome. I'm Carolyn Meister, Doctor of Physical Therapy and owner of Conscious Kinetics.
And I'm Ashley Robato, Physical Therapy Assistant and owner of St. Louis Ashtanga Yoga. And we're the hosts of the Bold Vitality podcast. For over a decade, we've been helping individuals navigate injuries, illness, and the journey back to health and well-being. Along the way, we discovered that consciousness was essential to healthcare. Hey, Carolyn.
Hey, Ashley.
So today on the Bold Vitality podcast, we're going to kind of continue the discussion on yoga a little bit. I know last week we talked a lot about yoga philosophy and kind of got into all of that stuff. And then this week, we're going to explore a little bit more about yoga postures or yoga asanas. And then we're going to kind of look at how we can use some of these different postures to access different stuff in our body, how we can kind of draw on some of the concepts of expansion therapy and overlay that with some of these different postures or positions, and just how we can use them to help us access different energy systems in the body, help us access our breath in the body, and just really use them as a tool to learn more about ourselves.
Yeah, that's interesting because I learned so much from a lot of my yoga poses. Like, you get to learn like where things feel differently. And the biggest thing I think that comes to mind to me right now is like weight bearing versus non-weight bearing. Mm-hmm. Like, a great one is downward dog. Obviously, we're always in downward dog. But the things that I've been discovering about myself is like when I offload my like spine, it's able to do a little bit more. It's able to stretch a little bit more, and figuring out like my fascial lines in some of them. And we can kind of talk on that a little bit more. But really getting to know like what my body, and not just feeling like stretches or whatnot, but feel like the weight distribution in the hands and the feet, and feel where your neck is and where your shoulders are to your neck and where your hips are. You're really starting to like draw parallels and understand like body positions a lot more.
Yeah, like I feel like, and this might be a little bit more specific to Ashtanga yoga, but it could relate to a lot of different kinds of yoga. But within the sequence of Ashtanga, we're practicing everything like very bilaterally, and you're doing a posture on like the right side, and then you're doing it on the left side, and it's like right after the other, but you're also holding that position for like 5 steady breaths. And so you're not just moving in and out very quickly, but you're there for a beat to be able to like check in and kind of notice like where some of those restrictions might be. You have the opportunity to like move your breath into that area a little bit more. Maybe you even stay a little bit longer in a pose if you really feel like you need it. And you get kind of this like real-time feedback on like, where are my restrictions? Where do I need to breathe into? I move much better on my right when I'm moving to my right side than I am to my left side. And this is all like giving us really good information about like our body and our systems.
Yeah, I think that the one thing I think I struggle with like performative yoga, like yoga studios, is that there's not enough opportunities for exploration. And I think they also don't support exploration of these poses, because sometimes like we go in and out of these poses in a certain particular way very quickly. And like there's something about like the quickness of it all that's like really great, but it's also like, it's almost like we bypass these tightnesses and these like parts of our body that really, really struggle. And so I've been like doing yoga on my own, like in my house, and I've done it more of like an explorative yoga, and slowing down and really feeling what am I restricted in with, like, let's say downward dog, right? What is actually restricting? And I've noticed like my hand placement, like I've been like tinting up my knuckles, I guess, because my hand has been tight. Basically, my forearm has been tight, and so I've been like coming out of the pose a little bit, and then like going back into it to basically like slowly stretch my forearms. And like no one necessarily taught me how to do this. And it's not, if I went to like a very strict yoga person, they would be like, that's not a pose that we would recognize necessarily, but it's like what is flowing so nicely for my body. And it's just like, it's to tolerance. So it's almost like I can't quite hit, like I can't quite be perfect, or whatever, not perfect, but like I can't hit this pose really nicely because I'm too restricted or I'm too tight. Let me back out of it a little bit, and really listen to my body. And I think that's what we lack from like this studio yoga, is like just hit a pose, hit a pose, hit a pose. No matter if you look like you're struggling or not, like just hit it.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to get caught up with like I just want to do it right. What's it supposed to look like? And I run into this very frequently too in like my studio and my teaching, and that's something that I try to like model away from, especially in like my Mysore style classes. There's a lot more freedom for the individual. Yes, there's a sequence of poses, but how everyone expresses that posture, I give individual freedom and autonomy. And I kind of give people suggestions and feedback based on what I'm seeing like in their body. And there's back and forth. And there's a lot of like, hey, this is fine, but like what would happen if you moved your arm this way? And then I'm like, how does that feel? How does that change things for you? So it continues with kind of like what I talked about last time. I'm infusing this constant curiosity and this exploration within the structure, within the discipline. Because it's important with practice that we do have, structure and some discipline, but there's important that we do have, freedom and exploration and curiosity, and we're not getting too stuck in rigidity either.
Yeah. I just like find that so neat that like yoga is one of those ones that can almost support that exploration a little bit more. I have been like, we've talked about this, where I've like lifted, I've been in the gym, and out of the gym all my life due to being an athlete. I've had, many yoga experiences, and I draw so many parallels between the two, but then also like away from each other. And some that I think in the gym, especially with the social media and everything, like people are so concerned with like what they look like and the movement looks like, which which is great, but it's also like, how does it feel? And I've seen so many times, and I have clients that they're like, I just want to squat and it's really painful to squat like this. And then, if we change up their squat, they're like, oh, that doesn't hurt, but I didn't think I was supposed to squat like this, or I didn't think I was supposed to move like this. And I'm like, there's not like a perfect way to do it. It's just like based on what your structure is and what you feel, and also your fascia. Like we have to consider that, like, not only is it like structure bony wise, but it's also like fascial structure, and fascial structure can be changing over time because we can release fascia and we can change the way bodies move over a good amount of time.
Yeah, like people, I think sometimes too, when you go in and you change something and it doesn't feel like as deep or as hard, then they feel like they're cheating. And I'm like, no, you're meeting your body where it is right now. And it's almost like helping them realize, like, yes, before this may have felt deeper, but right now you're actually like finding mobility in the place where I'd like you to access it. And before, you were totally like bypassing that to achieve, maybe your sense of like what this shape should look like.
Yeah, the movement, I feel like most of us with yoga, they're kind of, I look at it as like two classes and a spectrum in between of like, there is the strength based, where like some people do not have enough strength for yoga, especially because if you're just brand new and getting into it, like your body's never been in those postures before, so your muscles are working extra hard. But and then there's the, like, if you can think of like a really tight, I always think of like a really tight, either like office working male or like a I don't know, linebacker or something, even though sometimes they're really flexible.
Yes.
But like someone very tight, where you're just like, okay, this is a lot of, you're strong and you can hold these positions, but like we need more depth or we need more length or something like that. And it's really interesting because yoga can work in two ways, um, and so many ways. But like sometimes I'm sure like I've been telling people, okay, at like the ultimate stretch, you kind of want to hold it a little bit more and activate and fire those muscles versus like you're really going for this like deep stretch.
Yeah. And I think that's an important element of like yoga practice too. I think people can focus too much on like the passivity or like the passive stretch of it, but ultimately like if we want to be strong and long. That's what I always like told people, like we want to be able to move through our available range of motion. We don't want to feel restricted by muscular tightness or fascial restrictions. So we want to be able to move through our ranges. But we want to be strong in those ranges too. Because if we're just all like loosey goosey wet noodle, it's really easy to like injure yourself going to these places too. So you want to have the muscular strength and structure to be able to support your body moving into these positions. It's very important.
That's a really, really good point. Because, and I always like think like, yeah, everyone wants to be strong and long, right? And like, how do you get there? And I feel like a lot of the time there's a lot of forcing and like over forcing. Whereas I almost want to think of it as like, you say you want to do the splits or something, like you're going to go down to what you can do as the like splittiest split, and then you're going to come out of it. And like I would come out of it either halfway or like, and do arms supported or find a way to like kind of alleviate that stretch. And then you're kind of like flexing and trying to make it so that you can hold that position from the strength of your legs, like in that position really well. And I think that's like something that is really hard for people to understand and kind of get behind is like, how do you actually do it? Because so often do I see like people just doing it wrong but for the sake of just getting into the posture.
Yeah, that's a hard question. And so I think a lot of it comes to like releasing a little bit of our own ego,
Mm-hmm.
releasing a little bit of our desire to look a certain way or to perform a certain way. And I mean, this is definitely something that like I've had to do as a teacher too. I think there's a lot of pressure on yoga teachers, especially to be able to perform and know all these asanas and to be able to do these things. And there's certain poses that my body doesn't like to do anymore. Like with my shoulder arthritis, like it just doesn't want to go there. And I'm
Yeah.
like, am I going to break myself to like perform this for somebody to like, no, like, I just straight up, I'm like, I'm not going to go there anymore because my body doesn't like to, but here's how you do it, and like, I think that's an element too. It's like, do you want to keep forcing yourself to the ground for the split and like potentially rip your hamstring attachment and then be out for however long, or do you want to like say like, no, you know what, this is my limit, and like I'm going to scale it here where this is a place where I can work, and I'm going to just like slowly do the boring work of slowly chipping away and making gradual progress.
I just feel like that's such a hard part of our society
Yep.
right now, and such a hard part for people to just slow down, listen to their bodies. Like we are really good at like, I don't marketing like fastness, like,
Mm-hmm.
and we all love a before and after, right? And like that almost comes in with instant gratification of like, oh, I could get that done in 6 months, or like, have you ever heard the joke like 8 second abs or 8 minute abs?
Yeah.
Well, what about 7 minute abs? Okay, but 6 minute abs, like we're all trying to look for shortcuts. We're
Yeah.
all trying to like quicken the pace of everything, and it's almost to the detriment of our bodies and to our minds, and to our soul. I just find it like interesting that people will choose kind of the faster routes, and then and it is so like and I get like when someone's like, you should probably go slower, and I'm like, but I'm impatient. And like having to remind ourselves to be patient is the hardest thing.
And the yoga space isn't immune from this either. You see a lot of like these courses like that'll pop up on social media, like 6 weeks to handstanding, or like get your splits, or figure out this. And it's like all marketed around like being able to like achieve this certain thing, instead of actually like the tapas, the discipline, the austerity, the struggle, the hard work, the heat that we have to like build up and generate to actually like make meaningful, effective change. Like you might get some results with this, but I've also found that those results are a lot of times like very fleeting. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily lasting for us.
Yeah, it's so hard even as like we're segueing a little bit, but like even as a clinician, for people to not be in pain is really challenging because it's like people are like, okay, what is it? 12 weeks? Am I going to be better in 12 weeks? And I'm like, you may have pain that goes away in 12 weeks, but I haven't changed the actual like movement of your body in that short amount of time, because like usually the pain is just like telling you something, right? And if we haven't like really taken and understood and uncovered like what's actually going on, not just like physically but emotionally, like we aren't going to be able to get it in 12 weeks. I mean, yeah, am I going to be able to get your pain away in like 3 visits? Absolutely, I'll get it away in 3 visits. That'll take a week and a half, but like lasting change may take a year. And I wouldn't be in business if I like had to tell people that, but I do. I kind of say like this is going to take a lot longer, but this is just like you need to get it in your brain. These are like postural changes. These are moves you need to make like in everyday life, not just focusing on like 10 reps of, 2 sets every day.
Yeah, we've created like unrealistic expectations within like society based on like all of these like marketing tools to like get people in the door. And it's unfair because yes, like real change takes time. And then when we're getting down to business and the nitty gritty, like I mean, I've had definitely had these conversations too, and I was working clinically with people, had surgery. Well, how long is it going to take? And it's like, well, and you can educate people and be like, well, a couple of weeks, you'll probably be at this milestone if things are going well. And then, 4 weeks and 6 weeks and, 12 weeks. And, but yeah, we're year plus,
Yeah.
it's going to kind of just continue. And it's also, you're not going to see me that whole time probably either. And so it's like, and then it's like, how do you continue? Do you continue with that slow grind and that kind of continued remodeling when you have to do it a little bit more independently? Do you have the self motivation to kind of continue? And if you don't, are you seeking out like the right environment, whether that's, going to the gym to get your exercises done, or having a workout buddy or an accountability partner, or going to the yoga studio, or whatever that means?
Yeah, I think I've like shifted my own understanding of like these things from this let's hone in on it and get really good, because like even in my practice, like I'm like the concept is what's important. The understanding of your body is what's important. I can make you do these silly exercises um every day and you're going to be out of pain, but am I actually affecting your postures throughout the day? Am I affecting you throughout your life? Like what lasting effects is actually going to like be put here? Because let's be honest, everyone drops off like with exercises or even yoga sometimes, right? But is the like philosophy still there? Is the understanding still there of what you need to do? With some, and we all go through cycles. That's another thing. Like, man, I was really good with my like patience. Like last month, I was really, really good on it. And then like last week, I was so impatient. And like life is so cyclical. Life is, like progress doesn't happen linearly. And I think that has to do with like upping the antes, right? Like, okay, you got this base level of understanding. We're gonna like turn it up a little bit. Shoot, that was hard. That was a lot, and then you're like having to digest that and whatnot. So I just find, yeah, we struggle to be realistic with growth.
Yeah, and I think I think that comes a little bit too to like what are we exposed to, and we're exposed to like so many unrealistic expectations around growth too. So then like yeah, clinically it's like being a good educator and like kind of explaining these things, or for me like being a good yoga instructor and like explaining these things to people like when they have like a little bit of resistance or like we butt up against something, a suggestion perhaps, like I'm educating, I'm explaining the why, like, hey, this is my reason why I asked you to do this. And then, then but I'm also too listening to the feedback and I'm asking for it. I'm like, this is why I think you should do this or whatever. Here's my reason. What do you think about that? You know, does this, like with a patient, is this a manageable plan? Like what
Yeah.
is a real, like realistically, what can you do? What can you give me? Right? Because if
Yeah.
we're giving someone like, here's 20 exercises 3 times a day and they've never worked out before, like see ya.
Right.
So we really need to be realistic with like with what do they know, making sure that we're explaining our rationale. Well, education is just so important, I guess, is what I'm
Absolutely.
saying.
Yeah. I feel like you said on a different podcast earlier last week that like you felt like you were a teacher, and that was like a calling of yours. And like in my brain, I've been like wondering in my mind, like, we talk about like good versus evil, but on a spectrum, right? Like you could be like way evil or like whatnot. But like I feel like when everyone kind of starts connecting to source, whoever they are, and understanding consciousness and like all of these things, don't we all kind of like in a way become teachers? Because like what you're learning, whatever level that you're learning to share kindness and to do kind things for each other and connect with others and do these things, you may have your own unique niche of how you can understand it. Like you are yoga teacher and whatnot. I don't have your education and broadcasting and like flight attendant. Like you've got some random experiences that there are a reason you have all these random experiences. And they're not mine, but I also feel a calling to educate, and educate people on their bodies more than anything. Like I deeply feel like I'm here to make sure that people are connecting the spiritual segment to the physical segment and through the body specifically. But it's like as long as we're like, I feel like if we're trying to do good by others and we're trying to really like help others understand it in a way that we do, like isn't that like educating others, and isn't it teaching people how to like connect with themselves and to become empowered and embodied and whatnot. And so I like have this general understanding that like in a way I think we're all teachers as long as like you're teaching for the right reasons.
Yeah. And like I love that. And I always say like to my students and stuff, like I learned so much from you all. Like you all teach me so much. And I think that's an important thing to remember. Like if you are in a role of authority, whether it's like clinician to patient, teacher to student, like remembering that, you it's an energy exchange, right? And, information exchange. And there can be just as much for me to be gained that I can learn from this individual that I'm working with that's maybe coming to me as a student than I can teach them as like a teacher.
Yeah. I was thinking about like our society, a random thought by the way, but like our society is like we basically pay to like have friends with each other because like okay, my barber is my friend or my physical therapist are my friend and my this is my friend, and it's like, well, how'd they become your friend? Well, I spent a lot of time with them because I paid them for their services, right? Like therapy, that's like
Yeah.
there's a huge wall there because like therapists or counselors or whatever, like they want to make sure that that's like protected. But what you're essentially doing is you're like connecting with someone, or you're having them connect with you and your problems enough to be able to like help you and give you sound advice. They're educated in that way, but like if you think about the time that you're one-on-one with that person, like how many other people in your life are you that one-on-one with? And I just find that funny that like we've gotten into like basically paying in essential, like paying for help, but like back in the day or in other scenarios, like those people were your friends. And maybe the advice wasn't the same as like a highly trained therapist or whatever, but like we're all trying to help each other.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes me just think of the state of the world, and just how much more like disconnected. Like, there's beautiful things that like have happened as like technology advances, and as we become more of like a global society, and the connections that we're able to make. And but we like also, there's like a trade-off too, because there's things that are lost,
Yeah.
I feel like, and there's less like multi-generational living used to be like a much more of a thing, and
Yeah.
that's not really a thing anymore. And there's just much more separation. And so like, yeah, to seek out like community or experiences, yeah, that's often associated around some sort of monetary event
Yeah.
or exchange.
Yeah. And like you have to be careful of what community it is, because like a CrossFit community is so different than a yoga community versus a, like a Bible community,
Yeah.
a church community. Like there are so many different communities that you can find yourself like assimilating into and becoming like other people in that community. And usually it's around like, monetary value. But like it is very interesting to think like how much we ebb and flow in and out of different communities.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, this was all like interesting. I love how we got off the topic of
Yeah.
like yoga asanas, but I also feel like this is so, all of it is so related that like, tell me one thing and a separate thing, and I'll be like, it's related somehow.
Yeah, I mean, yoga off the mat. We're living it, That's what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So this was great.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Your support and time means a lot to us. If you are local to St. Louis, we'd love to connect with you in person. You can find information on Ashley's yoga offerings on her website, stlouisashtangayoga.com, or connect from anywhere on IG at St. Louis Ashtanga Yoga. You can find Dr. Carolyn on Instagram at conscious.kinetics and find links to book evaluations there.